Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal. I hope you're all well. It is Thursday and yeah, I thought I'd just pop on here today and have a bit of a Q&A. Haven't done one in a fair while. And as I've said in previous videos, this week I'm off on holiday in a couple of days. So I am going to be very, very quiet for 2 weeks or so while I'm sunning myself on a beach somewhere and hopefully watching on in various bars as Arsenal start the season with 2 wins before I get back, which would be very, very nice. So before I go, I just wanted to pop on, do a Q&A, take any questions that you may have, anything you want to talk about. Obviously, I know you're gonna send loads of transfer questions my way. Which I'll say right now, I'm not going to be able to answer the main one, which I'm sure you're all going to be saying, who are we going to sign? Who's going to be like the winger that we're going to bring in? And I can't really give you a name, unfortunately. If I had a name, I'd have already put it out there. If other people had a name, they'd already put it out there. But at the moment, I don't have one. All I know is that Arsenal, would like to sign a winger. I think that's pretty obvious. The fact that Arsenal have already tried to sign a winger already this summer. So I'll do my best to answer any questions that you have. But I'm early disclaimer right at the front that unfortunately, if you're going to ask me about what big signing Arsenal are going to make between now and the end of the transfer window, I can't give you any name because I just don't know it. So, and I'm not going to make it up. So anyway, disclaimer aside, let's get going because I've already seen lots of you are okay, straight away. Who is the winger? I don't know, Rasmus. I'm afraid I can't give you a name. If I had one, I would gladly put it out there. If other people had it, they would gladly put it out there. But I just don't. I don't even know if there is a name yet. I think that there will be plenty of names. There'll be the long list of targets that Arsenal will have. Obviously, raphinho was right at the top of that. They didn't get him. They couldn't get him. Edu's explained the situation as well. And I'm sure there will be. It's what Arsenal are do. There'll be number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and they'll be deciding whether those players are worth pushing the boat out for. I don't think Arsenal are going to panic. I've said that in previous videos. If they can't find a winger, then I don't think they're going to panic and just buy someone for the sake of it. It's like in January when they didn't go out and buy a striker just for the sake of it. They kept their powder dry and did it in the summer. And I think if Arsenal can't find someone who they think is going to make a massive, massive improvement to the squad, they're not just going to go out and do it for the sake of it. We know that Pepe's here. He's at the club already. Whether he stays remains to be seen. But the fact that Pepe is here, and we know he can make an impact. He's shown he can make an impact. Maybe that lessens a need. You don't have to absolutely panic. But we'll wait and see. But unfortunately, Rasmus, I cannot give you a name of who the winger is because I just don't know. And there's no update to give you on Tielemans, Omar, I'm afraid, at the moment. It's just still a bit of a waiting game to see what happens as we get towards the end of the window. It's always felt like one that if it is going to happen, it might happen at the end of the window. But as I've said previously, the more this summer goes on, the more it feels like if Tielemans is going to happen, it might take 1 or 2 players to leave between now and the end of the window for Arsenal to decide to push the button. They know what it's going to, they know what it's really going to take to get him. It's not, Leicester are open to selling. That's clear. Tielemans is open to joining. That's clear. It's just a case of if Arsenal think it's really worth sort of pushing the boat out for. And at the moment, clearly they don't because they haven't done it. That's not to say they won't, but it's a bit of a waiting game. And when you look at the squad number, you look at who Arsenal got in the squad, you look at the midfielders they've got, then you can see why maybe they're not absolutely really going for it right now and pressing the button because they've got so many players in the squad. And you've got to get players out, and that's what they're trying to do. That's what the priority is at the moment. It's tough. Good alternatives to raphinho. If you're just asking for my opinion, it's really tough. I was sitting yesterday. I was at London Colney at the training ground yesterday for an event for stuff that you'll find that will come out in the next couple of weeks in terms of the All or Nothing documentary. And I was talking to some other journalists and Arsenal journalists, in the Arsenal pack, and we were talking about, who is out there as a right winger who you would go for, and it's really difficult. There's just, there's not someone who immediately springs to mind. That's not to say Arsenal shouldn't have it. I mean, they've got a big scouting network and analytics department. They should know exactly who they want, and I'm sure they do. But in terms of me, and I'd have loved Serge Gnabry. Obviously, that would have been a dream. Didn't happen. He signed his new contract at Bayern Munich. He would have been great. I'd have loved Raphinha. I think Raphinha would have been, he would just tick so many boxes. It would have been a fantastic signing. So it's difficult. And maybe that's why Arsenal might end up not signing the right wingers, because when it comes to the real top quality alternatives, players who are going to really improve the squad. And that's what Mikel has said many a time, isn't it? If he only wants players now to take Arsenal to the next level, that he thinks will take Arsenal to the next level and the squad to the next level. If they can't find one, that's why I don't think they're going to panic. They've shown before they won't. They didn't in January. And I don't think they will again this transfer window. If they can't find someone who they think is going to come in, really make an impact, really, push Xhaka, give him competition, make a really big impact when he does play, when he needs to play, then I'm not sure they will. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I saw the stuff today about Paqueta and stuff. I mean, it's just I don't know how it can be called a snub. Arsenal haven't bid for Lucas Paqueta, so they've not. He's not been in a position to snub them or anything. And he's a player they're interested in, or not interested in. This player that they like, that has been on a list of potential players, and that's as far as it's gone. I mean, Edu himself has even spoken about that as well recently. There's been no offer. There's nothing like that. So it's the same kind of with Martinez and Alexandra Martinez. And it's like, oh, he's rejected Arsenal. He didn't reject Arsenal because he never got the opportunity to, because Arsenal wouldn't go to the sort of money that Manchester United did in the end to get him. Yes, they wanted him. They were interested in him, but it was pretty clear to them after a while that the money involved was just not something that they were going to go for. And so it was never a rejection. And it's the same with this Paqueta potential snub talk, that he's no interest in joining Arsenal. Arsenal he doesn't need any interest because Arsenal haven't bid for him. So yeah, I did take it all with a pinch of salt. Sorry, Joel, I am most definitely leaving. I am cannot wait, counting down the days. Been counting down the days for ages. Oh, there you go, Sane, Dan, spot on. There you go. Who good alternatives to Raphinha, Sane, all day long. I would love him at Arsenal. Well, there's Sane thinking about it. Is Sane an out right winger? Yeah, that's what he can play either side, can't he? But yeah, I'd absolutely like Leroy Sane. That would be fantastic. I mean, is that going to happen? You highly doubt it. But yeah, that'd be nice if Arsenal could somehow manage to do something like that. And by the way, it's just not me saying that Arsenal are interested in Leroy Sane by any means. It's just me saying, as an opinion, who would be a good alternative to Raphinha. That's my thoughts. That's nothing to do with me saying that Arsenal are interested in him. Incomings, I can't say for certain if there's going to be any more incomings. I'd be surprised if there are any more incomings before the Crystal Palace game. Outgoings, yes, I do think there probably will be before the Palace game. Bernd Leno, I imagine, will probably go before Palace game. I'd be surprised if he's still here. Nothing's done yet with Fulham. Those talks have been going on for a long, long time now, but it's getting towards the stage where I'd be surprised if it doesn't end up happening. I don't know when, but I think Fulham will want him in before the first game of the season, no doubt. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up at Fulham by then. There's some other players as well who Arsenal are obviously looking to get out. We know that. Whether anything can happen with some of these loan players from last season, Torreira, Mari, I don't know. Arthur Okonkwo, he'll be heading out on loan in the next couple of days to Crewe. That's pretty much done. But there's still a couple of things that need to be sorted out, and that will happen over the next 24, 48 hours. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't go out. So that's the goalkeeper's situation sorted really for the coming season. Then if Leno and Okonkwo do move on as expected, then try and think of any other potential outgoings that are really close. But I think Leno's the closest. So yeah, I think those two, Leno and Okonkwo, if you had to say to me now what the nearest two to leaving, it would be those two. Well, they're both training, which is a good thing. I'd be stunned if they made it for the Crystal Palace game. I mean, they barely had any pre-season, have they? Tierney, he played half an hour, didn't he, against Nuremberg in the first game before going off. Didn't take any part of the tour of US. He was there. He didn't play any part of it. And Tomiyasu hasn't even had 30 minutes yet in pre-season. So it's good that they're both back in training. Smith Rowe as well. That's good. But in terms of being available and in contention for Crystal Palace, I highly doubt it, because they've basically got to start their pre-season now and build up their fitness now. And you also don't want to take any sort of risks with either of those two players. So, it's positive that they are back in training. So that is a good thing. It's just a case of I think we're probably going to have to wait a few weeks yet before they really come into contention. The good thing for Arsenal is obviously they have options. Zinchenko will certainly just slot in at left back, and you think Ben White will probably play right back. It'll be interesting to see the starting lineup against Sevilla on Saturday. You would think that Arteta is absolutely going to try and play the strongest possible team. They had that game against Brentford yesterday at the training ground, the behind goals was friendly. Basically, all the main guys weren't playing in that, didn't play anything. So it was kind of a run out for the fringe players and the guys who weren't going to start against Sevilla. So I think Sevilla, all signs point to that being the strongest possible team, potentially for 65, 70 minutes. And that will give us a clear indication of who's going to start against Crystal Palace. And you would imagine, like in that first half against Chelsea over in the United States, it would be Ben White right back, Saliba and Gabriel as the two centre-backs, and then Zinchenko at left back. No, Syed, he's not fit for the Sevilla game. Not yet. Again, like Tomiyasu and Tierney, he's had no pre-season. He's even a little bit further behind Tomiyasu and Tierney. So, no, unfortunately for Vieira, I think we're probably not going to see him properly, you'd think, until after the first international break. I think he's getting closer, which is good, but the first chunk of the season, those sort of games, and a month or something like that before the first international break, he'll be using that almost as his pre-season. So he'll be training a lot. He might get an under-23s game, I don't know. But to throw him straight into the Premier League on the back of no pre-season would be a big surprise. So I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer to really see Vieira, maybe until after the first international break properly, that is, until he really starts getting embedded into the side. Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that, mate. I very much will. I'm not going to enjoy getting there, and I'm not going to enjoy the airport, especially with two little kids who have never been to an airport or on an airplane before. But hopefully once that stress is out the way, then I'm absolutely going to enjoy it. Saliba contract updates, asked Tyler. Tough one on that, because I'm not sure there really is any update as far as I'm aware. Yeah, obviously his agent's been in town. He's had talks with Arsenal. He's been at London Colney. His agent's in England at the moment, or he was yesterday. And that's as far as it's gone. As far as now, I know there's suggestions that he's signed a new contract or he's agreed a new contract. I'm not sure that's the case. I've not been told it. That's not to say it's not, but I've not been told it myself. And I'd be surprised, to be honest, because I just think from the Saliba side of things, why would you right now sign a new contract or agree a new contract? You'd want to wait to see what happens, certainly this summer and the first weeks of the season, to see exactly how you sort of kind of fit in. Yes, I'm sure he's been told lots of lovely things since he's come back to Arsenal, and Mikel said very good things publicly. But I just think from his point of view, you'd want to actually see what happens on the pitch first before committing your future to Arsenal, because he's in a very strong position. He's got less than 2 years left now. The power's beginning to move to his sort of side of things. So I think that I'd be surprised if he's agreed or signed a new contract. I've certainly not been told he has, but that's not me saying it hasn't happened. Maybe it has, and we're just not aware of it. But as far as I'm aware, there is no real update when it comes to Saliba's contract. And I can't wait to see him play, though. Really, really looking forward to it, and seeing how he gets on in the Premier League, seeing how he handles it. I mean, all signs in pre-season suggests that he's going to take to it like a duck to water. He's just got everything, so equipped to be really, really successful in the Premier League, and really looking forward to seeing how he gets on. And you kind of look at that Crystal Palace game on the opening night on the Friday. That's going to be one hell of a sort of baptism for him in a place like that, with an atmosphere like that, against a really strong and physical side. You think of the problems Arsenal faced with Mateta in that 3-0 defeat towards the end of last season, where he basically bullied the centre backs and Saliba. So he's going to be in for a really intense debut in that Crystal Palace game. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he copes with that situation. Who's your favourite Arsenal player at the moment? It's a tough one. It's got to be Bukayo Saka, I think. Everything about Saka is just great. I love him as a footballer, first of all. As a person, I don't know him personally, but he just comes across as such a nice guy. The dealings I have had with him, he's just been brilliant to talk to. And, he just plays football the right way. And so it's tough to look beyond Saka. But there's so many players in his team that I like. That's what really, there was that connection last season between the players and fans. And it just made a real difference. There's lots of players in this team that you like, that I like. So, I'd say probably Saka, but there's plenty in this squad. It makes it the most likeable squad I've known for a long time. Freddie P, opinions on Okonkwo to Crewe. Alexandra, look, I think it's a really good move for him. He needs to get out and play. Was always a plan for him when he signed his new contract last summer, when he was out of contract at that stage. And it was always a case of the plan that Arsenal laid out during those contract talks and Arsenal wanted a 5-year contract for him. It didn't happen. That I think Okonkwo and his people decided it was going to be a 3-year contract, and they wanted to see the clear plan for Arsenal. And the first year of that plan was he was going to be number 3 choice, and he was going to be in and around the first team for the whole season, learn that way. He's done that. And then the second year of the plan was always to go out on loan, and he's done that. And I think it's a really good move for him. It's going to open his eyes to professional senior football. He's going to have to deal with an awful lot of aerial balls into the box, and it's going to be an eye opener for him. And it's where players need to cut their teeth and do it. And I think he's going to learn so much more in the first 3 or 4 months at Crewe than he has ever learned before coming through the academy system or anything like that. And so I think it's a really good move for him. And it's the exact right time for him as well. I think he would have learned a lot last season being around the first team, but now he needs to go out and play. And there was lots of clubs in for him, and Arsenal and his people decided Crewe was the best option. So, like I said, that should be done in the next couple of days. There's still a couple of things that need to be sorted out. He's got to travel down there as well. He hasn't done that yet. And then the deal, hopefully, barring any late complications, will be done. What's Arsenal's plans regarding Walters and Brook Norton-Cuffy this season? I think Walters will stick around. I think Brook will probably head out on loan again. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. He learned so much over that loan the second and last half of last season. And he'll want to carry on playing first team football now. He won't want to go back to under-23s. And going back to under-23 is going to do him no good whatsoever. Once you've gone out and you've adjusted to first team football, senior football, and he showed that he can handle it comfortably at that sort of level, going back to the 23s, which is basically just exhibition stuff most of the time, will do him no good at all. So I'm sure Brook will probably go out. Walters, I think, will stick around. I think he's had a really good taster of things with the first team over at pre-season. But I think, he's still very, very young and inexperienced. I think 23s, a season with the 23s will be fine for him this season. But Brook, I think, will head out on loan. No, nothing concrete, Luke. Obviously, lots of speculation with him. It has been all summer. But I've heard nothing concrete about Arsenal potentially going for him. He's a very talented player who plays in a position that Arsenal are looking to strengthen. So I'd be stunned if he wasn't someone that they considered at some point this summer. But in terms of actually sort of moving things on and really laying down concrete interest and going for him, I haven't heard anything on that yet. But you never know, might be something that materialises between now and the end of the window. Nathan says, what are your thoughts on Odegaard for the upcoming season? Feels like people haven't been talking about him here, given he has Jesus to target up front. I expect a massive season, 100%, Nathan. I think Odegaard this season is all set to have an absolute worldie of a season. I thought it was brilliant last year. I still don't understand how people don't rate Martin Odegaard. It just literally messes with my head that there are people who don't think he goes through game. Yes, he doesn't always have the greatest game, but who does? The very, very few players in world football do. But on the whole, Odegaard was fantastic last season after a slow start. But then from that point onwards, when he really sort of cemented himself back into the side and adjusted, I thought he was absolutely brilliant. And when Odegaard plays well, Arsenal plays well. And yeah, I think he's going to be great this season. I wasn't in the States, but I saw as much of the game as I could. I spoke to some of my colleagues, journalists who went over to the States, and they just said, against Chelsea, Odegaard was absolutely brilliant. And he scored a good goal, and he needs to score more goals, no doubt about it. I want to see Odegaard scoring between 10 and 15 this season. He's got the ability, he gets himself into the positions. He just needs to be a little bit more ruthless almost in front of goal and take on more shots, because sometimes he gets in those positions you think he's going to shoot and he doesn't. It's almost a sort of touch of the Ozil about him there, where you just think shoot rather than pass. But yeah, I'm absolutely expecting a massive season for Odegaard this season, and I'm sure he's going to be captain as well. Which will give me even more responsibility. I would say a winger. If you tied me down and beat the answer out of me, I'd say a winger. Between now and the end of the season is probably more likely than a midfielder. But that again, that's just opinion. That's not for something for the aggregators to pick up and plaster all over. Honestly, I'm scared of saying anything now, nowadays, because no matter what I say, even if it's clearly just opinion, it somehow gets packaged up by some of the internet aggregators on Twitter and put out as fact. And my whole notifications for the rest of the day is just people retweeting stuff about something I've said that is just not the way I've said it, and it just it does my head in at times. So yeah, but I would say probably I'd say probably a winger. Thoughts on pre-season? I don't think you can really ask for much more out of pre-season, can you, than what this pre-season has been for Arsenal? Obviously, we've got the Sevilla game to close it off on Saturday. I know Arsenal lost yesterday, but it was a very changed team. There's not, that was like a reserve team almost. But other than that, it's gone really well. Jesus has looked brilliant. Odegaard's looked great when he's come back. Nketiah's looked really sharp. Scored 5 goals. Saliba's looked great. Zinchenko's come in and looked good straight away. So it's just been a really, really good pre-season. You can sort of go back to last pre-season, which was awful, and compare it to this season. It's just worlds apart. So yeah, I absolutely think Arsenal showed enough that they can challenge for the top 4. A lot of it's going to depend on Gabriel Jesus staying fit. If Jesus suddenly gets injured for a long term, then you're worrying, aren't you? I think Nketiah's clearly shown he's improved massively, but you'd want more than just Nketiah for any long, extensive period of the season. So I think Jesus is absolutely crucial, clearly, and he just looks so sharp and so ready to have a big, big season. So, if he can stay fit and he plays the way it looks like he's going to play, then absolutely Arsenal can challenge for the top 4. I'm convinced. Yeah, Sebastian Freya, he'll be coming in alongside a few of the other ones. Jan Vieira, players like that. If I haven't brought your question up, it's because there's so many that are about the same thing, and I don't want to just totally repeat myself. It's just just looking through the questions that are just all about Saliba and his contract and about the winger and about Cody Gakpo. And so, yeah, I'm trying to find anything that's kind of new. Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. Do you think the transfer window should finish before the season starts? It forces teams to do their business early and quickly. In a way, it would be good. And then you've got kind of, at the start of the season, what your squad is and everyone else does. And it's kind of a fair playing game, I suppose. But it just makes everything really, really rushed, wouldn't it? And if the rest of Europe don't do it, we saw when they tried it before. If the rest of Europe don't do it, then it just gets really, really messy and puts teams at a disadvantage. So no, at the moment, I don't think so. I think the system is, you don't really want to touch the system. It's kind of all right the way it is now. I mean, Torreira is just a really interesting one. Obviously, he was over in the States and he left. It's all been a bit weird in terms of Arsenal saying why he's left, and Mikel Arteta, when he's asked about it, just says he's still contracted our player. It's just obvious. I don't understand why he went on the tour in the first place. It was just a really odd decision. I've said that before, as people always remind me and call me like #1 fan of Charlie Patino or whatever. But I still will never get the decision to take Torreira on that tour and not take Charlie Patino. It's just like staggeringly odd in my mind, especially given the fact Torreira ends up leaving the tour halfway through without even playing anyway. It just made no sense, and he headed off to Italy, where I think he still is. He's not in training, I know that. And yet there's no deal close, or as far as I'm aware, no deal close with any team. And so it's just an odd situation. It's not doing anyone any good, and it's just a shame that Fiorentina didn't come through with the money that they said they were going to do and sign him. And I think that's affected Lucas, which not surprisingly, because he's kind of gone here, there, and everywhere in the last couple of years, and his mind's clearly not set on England. Arsenal clearly don't want him anymore, and he just needs to find a club. And I don't think anything's close. I don't know that anything's close, but I know that he's not here. I know he's not in England, or if he certainly wasn't, and he's not at training today, and I think he's still in Italy. So it's just a bit of a messy situation. That looks like a Hearts top. It's not a Hearts top. It's a Fred Perry t-shirt that is about 5 years old. And because I'm going on holiday in a couple of days, which I might have mentioned before, I'm in that stage now where I'm wearing just old tops to get me through, because all my new stuff is currently in suitcases all over the floor right in front of me. And I'm wearing just properly old stuff with holes in it at the moment just to get me through. So no, it's not Hearts top. It's a Fred Perry top. What's taking so long with the outgoing players? Look, I don't think this isn't just an Arsenal thing at all. I just think Premier League clubs are going to find it so harder and harder and harder as well in the next couple of seasons to shift players on, because the financial gap between the Premier League and everyone else is getting so big, and it is just increasing every single year, that selling players is just going to become, especially those sort of mid-range players who in the Premier League you kind of look at and think, yeah, the wages aren't astronomical, but when you compare them to the rest of Europe, they're actually massive. And these clubs in Europe who potentially want these players aren't willing to pay those sort of wages, and clubs are going to get stuck. So it's happening at Arsenal. We've seen that with Torreira and Mari and players like that. But it's not just them. Man United, everyone else, they just find it so hard to shift players. You kind of look at the players that Arsenal have been able to sell recently. They're the younger sort of players, even like Nuno Tavares right now, who, you know, that's not done yet, but he will be going at some point in the next maybe week or so. Marseille, it looked like Atlanta, now it's looking like Marseille. Only a loan deal, obviously, but there's lots of interest in Nuno Tavares. And, you know, they sold Guendouzi, they sold Mavropanos. Yes, they may not have got the money that we thought they probably should have done for those players, but at least there was a market for those players because they were younger. But when you look at the older ones, the Torreiras, the sort of mid to late 20s, there's just no market for them because they're on massive wages compared to the rest of Europe. They're old, so there's no real sell-on value, and these clubs are just, they can't afford them even if they wanted them. And so it's not just an Arsenal thing, and I think that's why it's taking so long, because no one's just putting up the sort of money that Arsenal want. Look at Bellerin, you know, year left on his contract, huge, you know, over 100 grand a week. Who in Europe is going to willingly pay that at the moment? They're just not. And so Arsenal are really struggling to shift him. I'm pretty sure he will end up at Betis by the end of the window. I'd be surprised if he doesn't, just because his heart is so set on it. But it's a case of how is that deal going to be done? Because Betis might be able to afford a few million to actually agree some sort of fee with Arsenal, but then they've got to sort out the wages. And, you know, Bellerin took a massive wage cut last year, which he's obviously willing to do for a year. But can you do that long term? I don't know. And can he walk away from his contract for a year? I don't know. It's all really complicated. And I just think it's such a problem for English clubs, and it's going to continue to be a problem for English clubs because the gap in terms of finances between them and the rest of Europe is just growing by the season. Simi says, do you think Xhaka will be sold this summer? It doesn't look like it. Look, when I started this summer and I thought there was a good chance that Granit might go. I thought the Roma might well come back in for him. I think that kind of ended once they signed Matic from Manchester United. And now it's looking like he will stay. I mean, I wouldn't rule it out if someone comes in with a massive bid. You never know. But I think it's getting to that stage in the season now, or in the summer now, where the season's just about to start. That if you sold someone like Granit, who, look, let's face it, Granit's probably going to start against Crystal Palace. If everyone's fit, he'll start in that midfield three. And so for Arsenal to now sell him, I'd be surprised. But, you know, if a decent bid comes in, then they might, and then they'll push the button and potentially get Tielemans in. But I think if you'd asked me this at the start of the summer, I'd have said, you know what, I think they probably are going to sell him. He'll go to Roma. But I think once Roma made the move and got Matic, and that ended the chances of that. And now I'm far less convinced that he will go, and he'll probably stick around. And I know lots of people got their opinions on Granit. I thought he had a very good season last season, and I think he's going to, once again, if he does stay, he's going to be a very influential player for Mikel Arteta. No real update on it. Just that I think it's going to happen relatively quickly. Now it seems like both clubs are now closer to a full agreement than they have been in the last 2 weeks over talks, and I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen. And, you know, good luck to Burn. I think he'll look great for Fulham next season. I think he'll make lots of good saves. He'll be busy. You know, he's such a good shot stopper that I think he's going to look excellent for them next season. I personally would have liked him to have stayed, but I can understand why he wants to go. I mean, he doesn't want to stick around and be number two for a second season in a row. I'm not convinced by Matt Turner from what I've seen yet. And, it's very early days. I don't want to rule him out by any means. And he might prove to be a very, very good, astute signing. But I think he's certainly going to need to improve pretty quickly on what we've seen from him in pre-season so far. And hopefully he does. And I'm sure we'll get a good look of him over the first few weeks of the season when the Europa League begins, potentially, and certainly when the League Cup begins. And then we can really sort of begin to judge Turner. But in terms of Leno, look, I think he's going to join Fulham. It's getting very close to that being done right now. But until it is, we can't say for certain because these moves break down all the time. But I think he will be heading to Fulham for a fee just around the sort of just under the £10 million mark. I think Balogun will go out on loan. I've said that all summer. I'll be surprised. I just don't see the point of him sticking around. And I thought he had a decent spell with Middlesbrough. He didn't exactly pull up any trees when he was at Middlesbrough, but I thought he had a decent enough loan spell. And now it just seems to me the best thing for him would be go out and have a full season on loan somewhere. Arsenal got Jesus, have got Nketiah, they got Martinelli, who'd all be ahead of Balogun in the pecking order in terms of central striker. And I just don't see the point of him sticking around for a season. Just hoping to get the odd minute here or there. So I think by the time the window closes, he'll head out on loan somewhere. I can see that happening. It's a very good possibility of it happening. Obviously, I think Zinchenko is going to start at left back right now. I've put him in my fancy team with the hope, because he's a defender in it, with the hope that he's going to end up playing in midfield and potentially get me more points from assists. But I do think it's an option. The thing is, though, the way that Arteta's team plays is quite, even if he plays left back, he could end up playing kind of in midfield anyway, and Xhaka would sort of drop in to make it 3 at the back while Zinchenko moves forward. It's just the way that Arteta's teams operate. So even if they are both in the team together, when Arsenal have the ball when they're in possession, it could easily be that Xhaka ends up dropping in and making 3 at the back, and that allows Zinchenko to sort of move forward into the midfield role, kind of like Cancelo does for Manchester City when he goes forwards. It's like, yes, he's technically a fullback, but he plays much higher up than a lot of the midfielders do, and I think that's what we'll probably see Zinchenko doing as well. Right, I'm going to answer one more, guys, but and then I'm going to have to go because what we're up to now, I'm coming up to 35 minutes, but everything. Right, I'm going to end on this one. And do you think Tomiyasu and Tierney fitness issues are a concern? I do. Absolutely think it's a concern. It's impossible not to be concerned about it. I think Tomiyasu, especially, we kind of knew it with Tierney when he signed. But with Tomiyasu, it's like, oh no, it is a worry. There's no doubt about it, because he's such a good player. He made such a big impact, but we've just not seen him. And the fact that he's come back from pre-season and now he's got another injury, it's like, is this going to be the tail of the season? Are we going to see it again? Sort of relying on him trying to stay fit. And I think from the Tierney one's not quite as big a concern because Zinchenko's here, which is fine. And he's such a good backup, if you want to call him backup. But, he's just such a good player. But I think the drop-off, and, I think Cedric's an excellent professional, and I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people seem to say he is, but there is clearly a big drop-off between Tomiyasu and Cedric, and I think that's the big concern. If Tomiyasu is going to be out for such a long period of time this season, which hopefully he won't be, but if he is, that drop-off to who comes in next is a worry. It's not so much with Tierney because of Zinchenko, like I say, but so yeah, hopefully they both those players prove us all wrong and stay injury-free for pretty much the whole season. Like I said, they are back in training now. I doubt they'll be available for Crystal Palace, or certainly in contention to start, but they are back in training, which is a good thing. So hopefully it won't be too long before they're knocking on the door of the first team again. But yeah, it is definitely a concern, but we'll wait and see. All right, guys, I'm going to log off now. It's coming up to 35 minutes. I've got some stuff I need to work on. Thank you very much for your time. Like I said, I am off on holiday now. Well, from Saturday, I'll try and do a video tomorrow. One final one before I go. But if I don't manage it, then have a fantastic couple of weeks, everyone. I will be back. So, yeah, don't worry about that. I will be back, hopefully looking a lot more brown than this and looking very nice and tanned after 2 weeks in the sunshine. And, yeah, a little bit relaxed and ready for the season. Have a great couple of weeks, everyone. Enjoy the start of the season, wherever you're watching it around the world. Hopefully, when I come back, we've got 6 points on the board and the league table is looking very, very nice indeed. I'll speak to you all very soon.